My name's Jake. I'm 27 and I work construction for a living, framing houses that other people get to call home. It's not the kind of job that gets you a corner office or a fancy title, but it pays rent on a studio apartment in Seattle and keeps my truck running. The apartment's nothing special. A mattress on the floor, a couch I got off Craigslist, a kitchen the size of a closet. The kind of place you crash in, not the kind you show off. But it's mine, and that's enough. I keep to myself mostly. Always have. It's easier that way. Most days blur together. I wake up, throw on a hoodie and work boots, head to whatever site we're on where I spend 8 hours nailing studs and hauling plywood, then come home to a frozen dinner and whatever's on Netflix. I'm not complaining. It's a life and it's mine. But sometimes when the apartment gets too quiet, I can almost hear the echo of voices that used to be there, back when I didn't live alone. That's when I turn the volume up louder than I need to, let the noise fill the empty spaces, keep the silence from settling in too deep. 2 years ago, I had someone. Her name was Rachel, and for a while I thought that was it, the real thing. We talked about getting a place together, one with actual furniture and a kitchen you could cook in. Then one day she sat me down and told me she'd met someone else. Someone with a career, she said. Someone who had his life figured out. She didn't say I was a dead end, but I heard it anyway. After that, I stopped trying. Stopped going out, stopped letting people get close. It just seemed smarter to keep my walls up than to let someone in just long enough to watch them leave. I wasn't bitter about it, not really. Just careful. The kind of careful that keeps you safe but leaves you eating alone most nights. That night was different, though I didn't know it yet. It was late October, the kind of cold that sneaks in after dark and makes you want to stay inside, and I was in my living room doing push-ups when I heard it. A knock at the door. I stopped mid-rep, arms still braced against the floor. Nobody knocks on my door, especially not at 10 p.m. For a second I thought maybe I'd imagined it, but then it came again. Softer this time. Almost hesitant. I wiped my hands on my shorts and crossed the room. The peephole showed a woman standing under the dim hallway light, her arms wrapped around herself like she was trying to hold something together. I opened the door, and there she was. Her name was Maya. I knew her, kind of. We'd met a few times through mutual friends, said hi at a barbecue once, maybe exchanged 5 sentences total. She worked at some coffee shop downtown, or maybe it was a bookstore. I couldn't remember. But I knew her face, and right now, that face looked like she'd been through something. Her eyes were red, not like she'd been crying exactly, but like she'd been holding it back for too long. She had an overnight bag slung over one shoulder, and her jacket was zipped up to her chin despite the fact that it wasn't that cold yet. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice smaller than I remembered. "I know this is weird, but can I crash here tonight? My roommate and I got into it, and I just need somewhere to sleep that's not there." I blinked, caught off guard. She didn't look dangerous, but I'm not the guy who just lets people waltz into his apartment. Still, her eyes held something I couldn't ignore. Not begging, not exactly, but a kind of tired desperation that made saying no feel impossible. Yeah," I said, stepping aside. "Come in, you okay?" She nodded, brushing past me into the studio. The air shifted, carrying the faint smell of lavender and cold night air. She stood there for a second, taking in the space. The mismatched furniture, the bare walls, the stack of work gloves on the counter. "It's not much," I said, already feeling the need to explain. "But the couch is yours if you need it." "Thanks," she said, her shoulders dropping like she'd been holding her breath. "I really appreciate this. I'll be gone in the morning, I promise." I grabbed a clean towel from the bathroom and a blanket from the closet, the thick one I never used because the heater worked fine. "Here," I said, handing them to her. "You want tea or something?" "I've got, I opened the cabinet. "Chamomile, I think." She gave a small laugh, the kind that's more relief than humor. Yeah, that'd be great. I filled the kettle and set it on the stove while she settled onto the couch, still clutching her bag like she wasn't sure she was allowed to set it down. She looked around again, her eyes landing on the weights in the corner, the pair of boots by the door, the TV playing some muted cop show I'd forgotten was on. You live here alone? She asked. Since I was 25, I said, keeping it short. She nodded like she understood more than I'd said. When the kettle whistled, I poured 2 mugs and handed her one. She wrapped her hands around it, her fingers trembling just slightly. So what happened? I asked, leaning against the counter. You don't have to tell me, but if the guy's dangerous or something. No, she said quickly. Nothing like that. Just roommate drama. She wanted her boyfriend to move in. I said, no, things escalated. She paused, sipping the tea. I saw your light on and figured it was worth a shot. We've met before, so I thought maybe you wouldn't think I was completely insane. I snorted. You're not insane, just in a shitty situation. I pointed to the blanket. Couch is all yours. Bathroom's there. I'll be up early for work, but you can sleep in if you want. She pulled the blanket around her shoulders, and for the first time since she'd knocked, she looked like she could breathe. Thanks, Jake, I mean it. I didn't think I'd feel safe tonight. I shrugged, turning off the kitchen light. Get some rest. As I headed to my corner of the studio where the mattress sat on the floor behind a half wall, her voice stopped me. Soft as the night outside. Jake, I'm glad it was your door I knocked on. I didn't turn around, just nodded. Yeah, me too. The next morning, I woke up to the smell of coffee, which didn't make sense because I don't own a coffee maker. For a second I forgot she was here. Then I heard the faint sound of cabinets opening, and it all came back. I sat up, rubbing my face, and looked over the half wall into the kitchen area. Maya was standing there in an oversized sweatshirt and leggings, her hair pulled back, pouring coffee from a French press I'd never seen before. Morning, she said when she noticed me watching. Her voice was steadier than last night, more like the person I vaguely remembered from that barbecue. I hope you don't mind. I ran down to the corner store and grabbed some coffee. Figured you could use it. I swung my legs off the mattress and stood, stretching. You didn't have to do that. I wanted to, she said, handing me a mug. Call it rent for the couch. The coffee was good, better than the instant crap I usually drank. We sat at the small table by the window, the one I mostly used for stacking mail. She'd already cleared it off. The morning light came in weak and grey, catching the steam rising from our mugs. So, I said, taking a sip. You heading out soon, or? She looked down at her coffee. Actually, I was going to ask if I could stay one more night. My roommate texted this morning. Things are still tense, and I don't want to deal with it yet. She paused, meeting my eyes. But if that's weird, I totally get it. I can find somewhere else. I should have hesitated, should have thought about it longer. But the apartment had felt less empty when I woke up this morning, and I wasn't ready to give that up yet. Yeah, that's fine, I said. Stay as long as you need. Her face softened, and she smiled. Real this time, not the tired version from last night. Thanks, Jake. I owe you. I shrugged, finishing my coffee. Just don't burn the place down. She laughed, and the sound filled the studio in a way I hadn't realized it needed filling. I grabbed a protein bar from the counter and my work boots from by the door. I've got to get to the site, I said. There's leftovers in the fridge if you're hungry. Help yourself to whatever. She nodded, already pulling out her phone. I've got some work stuff to handle anyway. I'll be out of your hair. I headed to the door, then stopped. You've got my number, right? From the group chat or whatever? Yeah, she said. I'll text you if anything comes up. Cool. I paused, my hand on the doorknob. See you tonight, I guess. See you tonight. The construction site was in Ballard, a new development going up where an old warehouse used to be. I spent the day cutting lumber and hammering joists, the repetitive work usually enough to clear my head. But today I kept catching myself thinking about Maya, the way she'd made coffee without asking, like it was the most natural thing in the world. The way her laugh had sounded in the apartment, bright against all that quiet. I wondered what she was doing right now. If she was still there, or if she'd gone out. If she'd come back. "You good, man?" Carlos asked around lunch, sitting down next to me with his sandwich. "You've been off all morning." "Yeah, I'm fine," I said, unwrapping my burrito. "Just tired." He gave me a look but didn't push it. Carlos had been on my crew for 3 years, and he knew when to leave things alone. We ate in silence, the sounds of drills and saws filling the space around us. I checked my phone once. No texts. I didn't know why I'd expected any. When I got home that evening, the apartment was dark except for the lamp by the couch. Maya was sitting there with her laptop open, earbuds in, typing something that had her face all scrunched up in concentration. She pulled the earbuds out when I walked in. "Hey," she said. "How was work?" "Long," I said, dropping my keys on the counter. "You eat yet?" She shook her head. "I was waiting to see what you were doing." I opened the fridge and stared at the mostly empty shelves. "We could order something," I said. "There's a Thai place down the street that delivers." Her eyes lit up. "Yeah, that sounds perfect." We sat on the floor, backs against the couch, eating pad thai and spring rolls straight from the containers. The TV played some cooking show neither of us were really watching. She told me about her day, how she'd tried calling her roommate to smooth things over, but it hadn't gone well. How she was starting to think she needed to find a new place entirely. I listened, asking questions when it felt right, letting the silence sit when it didn't. "What about you?" she asked, wiping sauce from her chopsticks. "Why do you live alone? You seem like you'd be good at not being alone." I took a long sip of water, buying time. "Bad breakup," I said finally. 2 years ago. Easier to just not after that. She nodded, not pushing for details. "I get that. My last relationship ended because he wanted me to move across the country with him. I said no, and that was it." She paused, looking at the food container in her lap. "Sometimes I wonder if I made the right call." "You did," I said, surprising myself with how sure I sounded. If he couldn't handle you having your own life, he wasn't worth it. She looked at me then. Really looked at me. And something shifted in the air between us. Small, almost imperceptible, but there. "Thanks," she said softly. "That means more than you know." We finished eating and cleaned up together, falling into an easy rhythm. She washed, I dried. The apartment felt different with her in it. Not crowded, just less hollow. When we were done, she grabbed her laptop again. "I've got some work to finish," she said. "You mind if I stay up for a bit?" "Go for it," I said. "I'm going to crash soon anyway." But I didn't crash. I lay on my mattress, staring at the ceiling, listening to the soft click of her keyboard, the occasional shift of her weight on the couch, the quiet hum of the heater kicking on. I'd been alone in this apartment for 2 years, and I'd convinced myself I liked it that way. But now, with someone else here, I wasn't so sure. The next few days fell into a pattern. She'd be there when I got home, sometimes with takeout, sometimes with groceries she'd picked up. We'd eat together, talk about our days, sit in comfortable silence when we ran out of things to say. She stayed on the couch, and I stayed on my mattress. But the line between us felt thinner each night. On the 3rd day, she asked if I could teach her how to fix a leaky faucet in the bathroom. "I don't know anything about this stuff," she said, watching me tighten the valve. "My dad always just called a plumber." "It's not that hard," I said, showing her where to grip the wrench. You just have to know which way to turn. Her hand brushed mine as she took the tool, and I felt something in my chest shift, like a gear slipping out of place. She didn't pull away, and neither did I. For a moment, we just stood there in the tiny bathroom, the wrench between us, not saying anything. That night, she showed me some photos on her phone. Her family back in California, her college friends scattered across the country, places she'd traveled before money got tight. I realized I didn't know much about her beyond the basics. That she liked her coffee with too much cream, that she hummed when she was focused, that she always folded the blanket in the morning, even though I'd told her she didn't have to. Small things that were starting to matter more than they should. On the 5th night, we stayed up later than usual. She'd had a rough day, her roommate officially kicking her out, and she needed to vent. I sat next to her on the couch, closer than I'd sat before, and just listened. When she finally wound down, she looked at me with tired eyes. "Out here with you," she said quietly. "I feel like I can breathe, like I'm not drowning in everyone else's expectations." I didn't know what to say to that, so I didn't say anything. Just sat there, the apartment quiet except for the traffic outside. The way the lamp caught her face made her look softer somehow, more real than she'd seemed that first night. I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Not since before Rachel. Not since before I'd learned to keep people at arm's length. I was starting to dread the moment she'd leave. Each time she mentioned looking for a new place, my stomach would tighten, and I'd change the subject. I didn't admit it to myself, but I was, starting to need her there in a way that scared me. It was late, past midnight, and we'd just finished a movie. Some action thing neither of us had been paying attention to. I stood, stretching, and grabbed my phone from the counter. "I should let you get some sleep," I said, already halfway to my mattress. "Jake," she said, and something in her voice made me stop. I turned back. She was sitting on the couch, the blanket pooled around her waist, looking at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. "Your bed looks warmer than the couch," she said. Her voice was soft but steady, no hesitation. I froze. My heart slammed against my ribs, and for a second I forgot how to breathe. "Are you asking what I think you're asking?" She held my gaze, not backing down. "What do you think I'm asking?" The question hung in the air between us. The studio felt too small suddenly, the space between the couch and my mattress both infinite and non-existent. I didn't move. Didn't trust myself to. My chest felt tight, and I couldn't tell if what I was feeling was want or fear, or some complicated mix of both. She didn't look away. Neither did I.